Dragon Ball Daima is officially over, and what a wild little detour that was. It had Toriyama's name on it, the animation was crisp, and everyone got hit with the Uno reverse card back to kindergarten. On paper, kinda fun. In execution, well, let's just say if you've ever wanted to see Goku fight for his life while standing 3 feet tall and arguing with a demon teddy bear, Daima had you covered. But now that the ride is over, it's time to talk about it, because for all of the nostalgia and cool moments, this series has problems. So in this video, we're going to look back at Dragon Ball Daima and break down what went wrong, what could have been better, and why it might be the most interesting birthday gift Toriyama ever gave us. Now, my first problem with Dragon Ball Daima is with tone and thematic execution. Dragon Ball Daima has a light and playful tone which is geared toward younger audiences, and that alone isn't a problem to me. Toriyama originally created Dragon Ball as an adventure comedy, and Daima tries to bring back that energy. But in my opinion, that style isn't very entertaining to me anymore. I watched OG Dragon Ball. I love OG Dragon Ball, and I think the tone it has is perfect for those characters at that point in time. I understand that Goku and the rest of the cast are kids now, but knowing how strong they really are makes that OG Dragon Ball tone kinda jarring. It's a little too unserious when you know what's at stake. It's too many steps backwards in the sense that I think Dragon Ball has just outgrown using that tone for the majority of a story. Daima was also an opportunity to explore new lore or present a new twist on the usual Dragon Ball journey. It being set in the demon realm is a plus, I will say that. But for all of the good things I can say about Daima, in reality, it's a much more polished version of GT. The only major changes is the demon world, and I think the demon world could have been a little more hostile if that makes sense. Like, the demon world just feels like different planets in GT with some minor changes. Even the idea of the Demon King, my perception of Dabura would have led me to believe that Gomah would have been a much different character and had much more sinister reasons for making a wish against the Z Fighters. But in reality, Gomah is just scared that someone beat Buu, so he made a wish to turn them back to children. I don't like that, plain and simple. I understand that many fans enjoy the comedic tone that Dragon Ball tends to have, and I'm one of those people, but in 2025, as an adult, and what I've already seen from Dragon Ball, it doesn't work for me. The supposed theme of Daima is the Demon King trying to handicap the heroes, but that is never truly compelling because the show never commits to developing an interesting reason for the Demon King to act this way. It just feels silly. And you know what else feels silly? The Super Saiyan 4 transformation. Now, I love the transformation scene. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. I was hyped like everyone else who saw the scene. I was hyped to see Goku fight Gomah as a Super Saiyan 4 because after 30 years, it seemed like one of the franchise's most beloved forms was now canon. But after that hype died down, I had to look at this form and ask myself, does this make sense? And after weeks of sitting with these thoughts, my answer is no. Let me explain. The reveal of the first Super Saiyan was memorable. Not just because of the animation or the scream Goku let out or even the death of Krillin, no. It was memorable because to get to that form, we had to see Goku endure the worst kind of punishment. He pushed his body to the limit and saw his best friend murdered right in front of him, and with his back pushed against the wall, he snapped. Super Saiyan 2 was the same way. Gohan was watching his friends get beat to death and he couldn't stop it, so he snapped. He let go of the reins. Super Saiyan 3 runs into some issues because we don't see how that form is achieved. There's no long-term build-up to it, and that's why many fans, including myself, don't like the form. Now we're in the present. Goku and his friends are fighting Gomah and they're losing, and Goku has no way out. That's until Neva stands over Goku and brings the power out of him. I think that was a huge mistake. I don't think any Saiyan exclusive transformation should be achieved that way, especially not one that embraces Saiyan roots in the way that Super Saiyan 4 does. And speaking of Saiyan roots, I kinda wish that they were mentioned in Daima. In Dragon Ball GT, the entire Baby saga is about the Saiyans being responsible for the existence of Baby and how their pride and ruthless nature led to what could have been their own destruction. The antithesis of Baby is Super Saiyan 4. There isn't a single story you could tell that can link Gomah and the new Super Saiyan 4. Many fans, including myself, hypothesized that the new Super Saiyan 4 would be linked to the demon world, but nope. Goku just trained really hard after Buu and that was it. When it comes to the look, I love Super Saiyan 4, I've said that before. But in hindsight, it's clear that the form was only added to bring attention to the show and not to move the story forward in a meaningful way. Also, Gomah stinks. He's not a good villain at all. I don't see an argument for someone saying he's a good one. That's it. And this is when I'll explain why the problems with Gomah start to bleed into the overall feel of the show, because his introduction is when the pacing takes a hit. Dragon Ball Daima actually kicks things off with a solid rhythm. There's this fun, adventurous tone that carries the story while still making it clear that time is ticking. The characters are small, but the stakes are kinda big, and the pacing reflects that. It moves with purpose, but never feels like it's in a rush. Every location they visit and every character they meet feels like a meaningful step towards solving the mystery of their transformation. And that makes the early episodes really enjoyable for me. But once the plot shifts gears and Gomah enters the picture, the pacing just kinda falls apart. It starts to feel like the show is in a hurry to wrap things up, rather than letting the tension build naturally. Characters like the Majins, Glorio, and Arensu, who were all shaping up to be important or at least interesting in their own way, get brushed aside almost instantly. And not because the story has organically moved past them, but because it's now laser focused on Gomah, who doesn't have nearly enough depth to carry the final stretch. The show sprinted to the finish line without taking a moment to breathe or reflect on the journey so far. I get that with only 20 episodes to work with, that's a tightrope to walk. You can't give every subplot a big resolution, and some sacrifices are inevitable. But the way Daima handles its final act feels less like a tough call and more like a missed opportunity. The pacing gets so frantic that instead of a strong emotional payoff, we're left with something that feels hollow. The show had done such a good job laying the groundwork for a world full of quirky new characters and mysteries, only to rush past all of it just to make room for a villain who doesn't deserve the spotlight. It's not that the ending is outright bad, it's just not very satisfying. And the last and most important problem I have with Dragon Ball Daima is the overall story. Dragon Ball Daima feels like a self-contained misstep, but it highlights a bigger issue that's been brewing in the Dragon Ball franchise for a while. Coming into Daima, fans were already in a weird spot timeline-wise. We knew it was set after Z, but it was unclear whether it was before or during Super, and even if you did know, it didn't really help because the timeline has become such a mess. There's this looming problem where the end of Dragon Ball Z is still supposed to be canon, but Super keeps piling more and more developments that could clash with it. At some point, someone's gonna have to explain how we go from Ultra Instinct, God Ki, and multiverse tournaments to Goku just casually flying off with Oob like nothing happened. It's becoming harder and harder to believe that the pieces still fit, and Daima doesn't help. If anything, it adds another layer of confusion. What makes it worse is that Daima had a chance to lean into that uncertainty in an interesting way. This was a unique moment to explore some quiet in-between space in the timeline and provide an introspective or transitional period for the characters. Instead, we got something that leans more into gimmick than growth. Sure, the character designs and setting were cute, but none of it contributed meaningfully to the larger narrative of Dragon Ball, and it didn't offer much depth on its own either. For a franchise that's been around for decades and has a fan base that's largely grown up with it, there's a disconnect between what the audience is ready to explore and what the show is actually giving us. Daima ends up feeling like another surface level detour when a lot of fans are hungry for substance. That's the frustrating part for me personally. As I've gotten older, it's harder to ignore the cracks in the storytelling. I think there's a more mature conversation to be had about how Dragon Ball treats its own continuity and whether it values long-term narrative cohesion. And look, not everything has to be this super intricate adult drama. Dragon Ball has always thrived on simplicity and fun. But there's a difference between keeping things light and just brushing aside your own history. Other series like One Piece show that it's absolutely possible to stick to childlike wonder and goofy premises while still offering rich, layered storytelling that rewards long-term investment. In One Piece, the older you get, the more you appreciate it. With Dragon Ball, I feel the opposite. Daima doesn't offer anything to the mature side of the fan base. Those of us who've been here for years, who know every arc, every transformation, every tiny contradiction, instead of adding clarity or at least acknowledging the broader scope of the series, it felt like another isolated spin-off with no real ambition beyond short-term novelty. Maybe that's fine for some viewers, and maybe Dragon Ball doesn't need to reinvent itself for us. But if the franchise is going to keep telling new stories, I think it owes it to the fans to tell stories that actually matter. Ones that respect where the series has been and take seriously where it's going. Otherwise, we're just watching the same cycle repeat while pretending the story still has somewhere to go. But after saying all of this, I'm starting to slowly realize something. Maybe I shouldn't even be talking about a series like this so critically. Maybe it was just a celebration of the franchise. Maybe I just need to appreciate all of the dreams Toriyama has made come true recently. But maybe not. Maybe Dragon Ball is getting worse. Maybe the fans have outgrown Dragon Ball. And that leads to my next video. Maybe Dragon Ball needs to die. Let me know down in the comments what you think the biggest problems in Dragon Ball Daima are, but with that being said, this is BigTune and thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one.